House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 8, Ending Explained, Finale Breakdown. This video contains major spoilers for House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 8, including the Battle of Tumbleton, Helaena Targaryen's death, Aegon and Aemond's reunion, and the final scene of the season. House of the Dragon Season 3 has finally reached its brutal finale, and Episode 8 changes the direction of the entire Dance of the Dragons. The episode gives us the Battle of Tumbleton, a shocking betrayal from Ulf the White, the death of Lord Ormund Hightower, the tragic end of Queen Helaena Targaryen, Aegon's unexpected return, and one of the most important moments between Aegon and Aemond. But the biggest question is this: what does the ending actually mean, and what is House of the Dragon setting up for Season 4? Let's break down everything that happened. The Battle of Tumbleton. The biggest event of the finale is the First Battle of Tumbleton. Daemon leads the Black forces toward Tumbleton, while Lord Ormund Hightower commands the Green forces defending the town. Ormund knows that Tumbleton is extremely important. If the Blacks take the town, the Greens lose another major position in the Reach. The battle quickly becomes chaotic. Daemon and the Black forces attack, while the Greens attempt to defend the town. Dragons turn the battlefield into complete destruction, and civilians become trapped in the middle of the conflict. But the biggest problem for the Greens is Ulf the White. Ulf is supposed to fight for the Blacks, but his loyalty has been falling apart throughout the season. He has never really cared about Rhaenyra's cause. He likes the idea of being a powerful dragon rider. He enjoys the status, the attention, the drinking, and the privileges that come with riding Silverwing. But he doesn't have the same loyalty to Rhaenyra that someone like Daemon or Rhaenyra's own family has. And by the time the battle begins, Ulf has effectively betrayed the Blacks. He turned Silverwing against the forces he was supposed to support. But Ulf's betrayal doesn't produce the clean victory the Greens expected. Instead, everything becomes even more chaotic. Ulf begins attacking people across the battlefield, and eventually even Ormund Hightower becomes one of his victims. How does Ormund Hightower die? Ormund's death is one of the biggest moments of the battle. During the fighting, Ormund comes face to face with Roderick Dustin, also known as Roddy the Ruin. The two men fight directly. Ormund manages to cut off Roddy's arm, but Roddy continues fighting. Eventually, Ormund is killed during the battle, with Silverwing's dragonfire becoming part of his brutal fate. Roderick Dustin also dies shortly afterward. The important point is that Ulf's betrayal doesn't simply help one side win. It creates total chaos. Tumbleton is effectively destroyed, and the battle demonstrates how dangerous it is for either side to place so much power in the hands of unpredictable dragon riders. And that brings us to one of the biggest questions of the finale. Why did Ulf betray Rhaenyra? The answer has been building throughout Season 3. Rhaenyra and Daemon treated Ulf as a useful weapon rather than someone they truly trusted. They demanded loyalty from him, while Ulf increasingly felt that he deserved more respect and privilege. The problem was that Rhaenyra had given an enormous amount of power to someone whose loyalty was never secure. And Tumbleton proves the consequences. Aegon and Sunfyre return. While the battle is happening, another major storyline is developing. Aegon is alive. After everything he suffered earlier in the season, Aegon has finally reunited with Sunfyre. This is enormously important because Aegon is no longer simply the broken king who disappeared after being defeated. He is returned with his dragon. And now he has something that Rhaenyra cannot easily dismiss. The people can see him. The Green cause suddenly has a living king again. Aegon then travels to Harrenhal to confront Aemond. And this is where the finale gives us one of the most surprising character moments of the entire season. Aegon meets Aemond. For much of the series, Aegon and Aemond have been enemies. Aemond has blamed Aegon for being an inadequate king. Aegon has resented Aemond's actions, and Aemond was responsible for the attack that left Aegon horribly injured at Rook's Rest. So when Aegon finally arrives at Harrenhal, it seems like Aemond's fate is sealed. Aegon has every reason to kill his brother, but he doesn't.
Instead, Aegon sees that Aemond has changed. Aemond is no longer the confident prince who believed he could control everything. He has lost his certainty. He has been manipulated by Alice Rivers. He has been betrayed by his own family. And he realizes that he is essentially alone. Aegon sees that, and instead of killing him, Aegon decides to keep him alive. This is one of the most important signs of Aegon's character development. Earlier in the story, Aegon was selfish, reckless, and immature. But after everything that happened to him, he has changed. He understands what power costs, and he realizes that Aemond could actually be useful. So instead of destroying his brother, Aegon and Aemond form an uneasy alliance. The brothers are still not exactly friends, but they now have a common objective. They want Rhaenyra defeated, and that becomes one of the biggest setups for Season 4. What happened to Aemond and Alice Rivers? Aemond's storyline at Harrenhal also reaches an important point. Alice reveals more about herself and her connection to Harrenhal. She claims to have lived for generations and tells Aemond about the strange forces and older forms of magic that have shaped her life. This makes it increasingly clear that Alice is not simply a normal woman living at Harrenhal. She appears to have some form of supernatural knowledge or power. And Aemond finally understands that he cannot completely control her. The relationship between Aemond and Alice has always been complicated. Alice has guided him, manipulated him, and shown him possible futures. But she has also repeatedly warned him about what is coming. By the end of the season, Aemond is left with the knowledge that his future is not entirely in his control. And then there is the mystery of Vhagar. Aemond expected his enormous dragon to be available, but Vhagar is still missing. That becomes another major unanswered question heading into Season 4.
Why does Rhaenyra become more ruthless? While all of this is happening, Rhaenyra is changing. And this may actually be the most important character development of the finale. Rhaenyra began the season wanting to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. She wanted peace. She wanted recognition of her claim. But every time she tries diplomacy, she encounters another obstacle. Then she discovers that Aegon is alive. This changes everything. Rhaenyra realizes that as long as Aegon lives, her claim can never be completely secure. The High Septon also refuses to recognize her authority because Aegon is still alive. Rhaenyra finally reaches a breaking point. She orders Alan to kill the High Septon. Then she addresses the people and presents herself as the ruler who can protect the realm. This is a major transformation. The woman who once hesitated to unleash the full power of the dragons is now becoming much more willing to use violence to maintain her claim. And the finale makes an important comparison. Aegon has moved away from power and, ironically, become more sympathetic. Rhaenyra has moved closer to power and is becoming increasingly ruthless. The two characters are moving in opposite directions. Why did Helaena Targaryen kill herself? And then comes the most tragic moment of the finale. Helaena is still imprisoned in the Red Keep. She is pregnant. She has been isolated from her family. And her prophetic visions have become increasingly important throughout the season. She also learns that Rhaenyra intends to keep her prisoner. Mysaria gives Helaena the message that Rhaenyra will not release her. Helaena realizes that her situation may never change. She has already experienced enormous trauma. Her son Jaehaerys was murdered earlier in the war. She has suffered through visions of the future. She has been used as a political prisoner. And now she believes she has no real path to freedom. Eventually, Helaena climbs to the window of the Red Keep and jumps to her death. Her death is devastating because Helaena has always been one of the few characters who seemed disconnected from the hunger for power. She never wanted the throne. She never wanted war. She wanted a quiet life. But the Targaryen civil war destroyed that possibility. What does Helena's tapestry mean? The final scene gives us an important clue about Helaena. Rhaenyra enters Helena's chambers and discovers the tapestry she had been working on. And the tapestry contains an image of Helena's own death. This suggests that Helaena knew what was coming. Her prophetic abilities have been a major part of her story, and the finale makes the tapestry feel like the final piece of that mystery.
But there is something even more important. The tapestry doesn't only depict Helaena. It contains imagery connected to Rhaenyra, dragons, fire, and death. It suggests that Helena's visions may have been showing her fragments of the future all along. Rhaenyra looks at the tapestry. She sees what Helaena created. And instead of giving us a triumphant ending, the show gives us darkness. Rhaenyra closes the window, the room becomes dark. And that image is symbolic. Rhaenyra has technically won important battles. She has the Iron Throne. But she is losing the person she was. The throne is changing her. What does the ending mean? The most important thing about the Season 3 finale is that the Dance of the Dragons is nowhere near finished. Tumbleton has shown that dragon power cannot be controlled. Ulf has betrayed the Blacks. Aegon is alive. Aemond is still alive. Vhagar is still somewhere in the realm. Daeron and Tessarion survive the battle, although Daeron's ultimate fate remains uncertain. Rhaenyra still has the throne, but her decisions are creating new enemies. And Helena's death could have enormous consequences. She was beloved by many people in King's Landing. Her death gives the small folk another reason to turn against Rhaenyra. At the same time, Alicent now has even more reason to hate what Rhaenyra's rule has become. So even though Rhaenyra appears to be winning, the finale is telling us something very different. She may have the crown, but she is losing control. What happens next? Season 4 now has several major storylines waiting. Aegon and Aemond are together again. Sunfyre is alive. Vhagar remains a massive threat. Daeron and Tessarion are still in the game. Rhaenyra controls King's Landing, but her position is becoming increasingly fragile. And the biggest question is whether Rhaenyra can actually win the war without destroying herself in the process. The Season 3 finale isn't really the end of the dance. It's the moment when the war becomes even more dangerous. The dragons are still alive. The rival kings are still fighting. The alliances are falling apart. And the people who thought they could control the war are beginning to realize that the war is controlling them. So, the final image of Rhaenyra standing in darkness is more than just a dramatic ending. It represents what the Iron Throne is doing to her. And after everything that happened in Season 3, the question going into the final season isn't simply who will sit on the Iron Throne. It's whether there will be anything left of these families by the time the war is finally over. And that is where House of the Dragon Season 3 leaves us.